The movie begins in the year 2084, a future where technology has changed almost every part of human life. Earth is crowded, powerful companies control major industries, and Mars has become a place where people actually live and work. In this world, Douglas Quaid is an ordinary construction worker who spends his days doing a dangerous but routine job. He lives with his wife Laurie in a comfortable home, and from the outside, their marriage seems normal. However, Quaid feels that something is missing from his life. Almost every night, he has strange dreams about Mars. In these dreams, he sees himself walking across the red planet with a mysterious woman. The dreams are so realistic that Quaid wakes up feeling as if he has actually been there. He tells Laurie about them, but she does not share his excitement. Instead, she encourages him to forget about Mars because she believes the planet is too dangerous. Quaid cannot understand why she reacts so strongly whenever he mentions it. His curiosity only grows, especially because he feels an unexplained connection to the planet. He begins wondering whether his dreams could mean something more than simple imagination. Even though he has never been to Mars, according to his memories, the place feels strangely familiar to him. Quaid eventually hears about a company called Recall, which offers a revolutionary service that allows people to experience artificial memories. Instead of spending money and risking their lives on a real vacation, customers can have memories implanted directly into their minds. They can remember climbing mountains, traveling to exotic locations, becoming famous people, or even living as secret agents. Quaid becomes fascinated by the idea because he wants to experience Mars without actually traveling there. He decides that a simulated vacation will finally satisfy his obsession. At Rec Hall, an employee explains the process and asks Quaid to choose the kind of experience he wants. Quaid chooses a trip to Mars and then decides to make it more exciting by adding a secret agent fantasy. The staff tells him that the procedure will create realistic memories that will feel completely genuine. Quaid lies down and prepares for the experience, believing that he is simply paying for an unusual vacation. But as the procedure begins, something unexpected happens. The technicians discover that Quaid's mind already contains unusual memories connected to the scenario they are trying to create. The machine begins reacting strangely, and the employees suddenly become nervous. Instead of continuing the procedure, they shut everything down. Quaid is confused and does not understand why everyone is suddenly frightened by him. After the procedure is stopped, the people at Rec Hall try to convince Quaid that he experienced a simple reaction to the memory implantation. They act as though nothing serious has happened, but their behavior makes Quaid suspicious. He leaves the facility without receiving a proper explanation. On his way home, he tries to remember what happened, but his memories are unclear. He knows something went wrong, yet he cannot understand what it means. When he reaches home, he expects Laurie to help him calm down. Instead, she immediately notices that something has changed. Quaid tells her about Recall, but she becomes strangely upset. Her reaction is much stronger than he expected, and Quaid begins to wonder whether she already knows something about his experience. Before he can get answers, the situation suddenly becomes dangerous. People who appear to be trained killers begin targeting him. Quaid is forced into a violent confrontation, and this is where another shocking mystery appears. Although he has always believed that he is only a construction worker, he suddenly demonstrates extraordinary fighting abilities. His movements are fast, controlled, and instinctive, as though he has received professional combat training. He manages to survive the attack, but now he has even more questions. Why can an ordinary construction worker fight trained assassins? Why are these people trying to kill him? And why does Laurie seem to know something about his real identity? Quaid escapes and tries to find a safe place where he can think, but the more he tries to understand the situation, the more dangerous everything becomes. He encounters people who appear to recognize him, even though he has never seen them before. Someone gives him information suggesting that his current identity is not what it seems. Quaid discovers evidence pointing toward a hidden life, possibly one connected to Mars. The discovery completely changes the way he looks at his own memories. Until this moment, Quaid believed that his childhood, his marriage, his job, and his entire life were genuine. Now he begins to suspect that some or all of those memories may have been created or altered. His dreams about Mars suddenly seem more important. Perhaps they are not dreams at all. Perhaps they are fragments of memories buried deep inside his mind. Quaid starts asking himself whether he has actually been to Mars before and whether he once lived a completely different life. The people hunting him seem determined to prevent him from finding the answers. Every time he gets close to discovering the truth, another threat appears. He realizes that he cannot simply return home and continue living normally. Someone has already decided that he is too dangerous to remain alive. As Quaid moves through the city, he receives a mysterious message that appears to have been prepared for him in advance. The message warns him that he cannot trust the people around him and gives him clues about his hidden identity. The information points him toward Mars once again. Quaid begins to understand that his obsession with the planet may not have started recently. Something from his past is connected to Mars, and that forgotten history may explain why powerful people are trying to silence him. He also realizes that the memory implantation at Recall may have awakened something that someone had worked very hard to keep hidden. The more he thinks about his strange dreams, his fighting skills, and the mysterious people following him, the harder it becomes to believe that he is simply Douglas Quaid. At the same time, he has no way of knowing which memories are genuine. This uncertainty becomes one of his biggest problems. If his mind has been manipulated, then even his own thoughts could be part of a carefully designed deception. Quaid must now survive long enough to discover the truth before the people hunting him find him again. The chapter ends with Quaid facing the biggest mystery of his life. His ordinary existence has completely collapsed and he can no longer trust the world around him. The man he believed himself to be may only be an identity created to hide his real past. His dreams about Mars, the strange reaction at Rekal, his unexplained combat abilities, and the people determined to kill him all appear to be connected. Quaid knows that the answers are somewhere beyond Earth, and Mars seems to be at the center of everything. He does not yet know who he really is, why his memories were changed, or what happened to him before he became a construction worker. But he understands one important thing. Going back to his old life is no longer possible. If he wants to survive, he must uncover the truth about himself. And the closer he gets to Mars, the closer he comes to discovering a secret that could completely change his understanding of reality. Quaid is now completely cut off from the ordinary life he once knew. The people chasing him are not random criminals, and the strange clues appearing around him suggest that someone has been watching him for a long time. He knows that returning home would be dangerous, especially after realizing that Laurie is hiding something. Quaid tries to understand the message left for him and follows the clues that point toward his mysterious past. Eventually, he discovers a way to leave Earth and travel to Mars. The journey is not simply a vacation anymore. Mars has become the only place where he believes he can find answers. When he arrives, the planet looks nothing like the peaceful destination he imagined during his dreams. Mars is crowded, harsh, and controlled by powerful forces. Huge colonies have been built beneath the surface, and ordinary workers struggle to survive in a dangerous environment. Quaid moves through the unfamiliar streets while trying to avoid anyone who might recognize him. Yet the strange feeling of familiarity continues. Certain places seem connected to his dreams, making him wonder whether his mind is finally remembering pieces of his forgotten life. On Mars, Quaid begins searching for information about his identity. He follows clues connected to the mysterious woman from his dreams, and soon encounters people who seem to know much more about him than they should. One of the most important clues comes from a man named Melina, a woman who appears to have a strong connection with Quaid's hidden past. Quaid is confused because he feels that he knows her, even though his current memories tell him they have never met. Melina does not trust the identity of Douglas Quaid and suggests that the man standing in front of her is connected to someone from the past. Quaid struggles to understand what she means, but her words make his memories even more uncertain. He begins to suspect that the life he remembers with Lori was created as part of a larger deception. Meanwhile, dangerous men continue searching for him throughout the Martian colony. Quaid realizes that the people after him have resources, weapons, and information far beyond anything an ordinary criminal group could possess. He needs to stay one step ahead while discovering why he has suddenly become such an important target. As Quaid investigates further, he learns about the political situation on Mars. The planet is controlled by Administrator Vilos Cohagen, a powerful leader who maintains strict control over the colony and its population. Cohagen's government has enormous influence over the workers and the oxygen supply, making resistance extremely dangerous. Many people living on Mars are unhappy with the way they are treated, but openly challenging the authorities can have deadly consequences. Quaid begins hearing stories about a resistance movement fighting against Cohagen's control. The mysterious information connected to his past suggests that he may somehow be involved with these rebels. This possibility shocks him because it means he may have once been an enemy of the government. The memories he has now may have been created specifically to hide that connection. Quaid begins realizing that his situation is much larger than a personal mystery. If his real identity is connected to the resistance, then discovering who he was could have consequences for the entire Martian colony. At the same time, Cohagen's forces continue closing in, forcing Quaid to keep moving. Quaid eventually encounters a group of people who provide him with more information about his past. They reveal that he may have previously been known by another identity and that his memories were deliberately altered. This explains why he has been experiencing strange dreams and why certain situations trigger unexpected reactions. His skills, instincts, and knowledge are not random. They are remnants of the person he used to be before his memories were changed. Quaid struggles to accept this because his memories of being Douglas Quaid feel completely real. The idea that someone can change a person's identity by manipulating their mind becomes increasingly disturbing. He begins questioning whether even his relationship with Lori was genuine. The people helping him insist that he must remember his past if he wants to understand what is happening. Quaid is determined to find the truth, but every answer creates another mystery. Meanwhile, Melina continues helping him despite the dangers surrounding them. Her confidence that Quaid is not the man he believes himself to be makes him wonder whether she remembers a version of him that has been completely erased from his own mind. The search eventually leads Quaid deeper into the underground world of Mars, where he encounters people living outside the control of Cohagen's government. These people are connected to the resistance and understand the secrets behind the political conflict. Quaid discovers that the colony's population is suffering because access to oxygen is controlled by the authorities. The situation gives Cohagen enormous power over ordinary citizens. If the resistance succeeds, that balance could collapse. Quaid slowly realizes why someone would go to such extreme lengths to erase his identity. If he truly played an important role in the resistance, then his knowledge could threaten the entire system. Cohagen therefore has every reason to keep him under control, but Quaid still needs proof before he can fully accept this new version of his past. He wants to know who he was, why his memories were erased, and why Melina seems so certain that she knows him. As he continues searching, he becomes more confident in his ability to survive. The instincts that once confused him now begin to feel natural, as if another part of his personality is waking up. As Quaid listens to the resistance members, he learns more about the political situation on Mars. Cohagen has maintained control over the colony for years, using the oxygen supply as a weapon against anyone who challenges his authority. The poorest citizens live in difficult conditions, while the powerful enjoy protection and resources. The resistance believes that Mars can be freed, but their chances are limited because Cohagen's forces are heavily armed and constantly monitoring the population. Quaid realizes that his forgotten identity may be connected to a plan that could weaken Cohagen's control. This makes him an important target. Cohagen does not simply want Quaid captured because of what he knows. He wants to make sure the truth about Quaid's past never reaches the resistance. Melina continues encouraging Quaid to remember who he was, but she also understands that recovering his identity could be dangerous. Quaid's mind has been manipulated for so long that the process of remembering could cause confusion and emotional conflict. Still, Quaid decides that he would rather know the truth than continue living inside a false life. Meanwhile, Laurie is no longer simply Quaid's wife in his mind. Her true role becomes much more disturbing. Quaid discovers that the woman he trusted was involved in keeping his false identity intact. She had been assigned to stay close to him and make sure he continued believing that he was an ordinary man. The revelation hurts Quaid deeply because he had genuinely loved her. He struggles to understand how someone who shared his home and life could secretly be part of the plan against him. Laurie attempts to convince Quaid that he is making a terrible mistake and that the memories he is recovering cannot be trusted. She argues that the people around him are manipulating him and that he should return to the life he knew. But Quaid has already seen too much evidence to believe her completely. His instincts tell him that something is wrong. When Laurie tries to stop him from discovering more about his past, Quaid is forced to confront her. The emotional conflict is just as difficult as the physical danger because Quaid realizes that the person he believed was his closest companion may have been part of the deception from the beginning. Quaid's investigation eventually brings him closer to the central mystery surrounding Mars. He learns about a hidden alien technology discovered beneath the planet's surface. According to the information available to the Resistance, ancient structures and machines may have been left behind by an unknown civilization. The technology appears to be connected to the atmosphere of Mars and could potentially transform the planet. This discovery is extremely important because Mars is struggling with limited breathable air, and control over the planet's atmosphere could completely change the balance of power. Cohagen knows about this technology and wants to keep it under his control. The Resistance believes that activating it could give ordinary people a chance to survive without depending on Cohagen's government. Quaid realizes that his forgotten past may have been connected to this secret. The deeper he goes into the mystery, the more he understands why powerful people wanted his memories erased. His identity is not only connected to a political rebellion, it may also be connected to the future of the entire planet. As Quaid and Melina move forward, they face constant attacks from Cohagen's soldiers. The Resistance has limited resources, so every escape becomes dangerous. Quaid's abilities continue to surprise him, and he begins trusting his instincts instead of questioning them. The man he once believed was an ordinary construction worker is slowly disappearing, while the skilled and determined person hidden beneath that identity becomes stronger. Yet Quaid still refuses to become completely consumed by his old identity. He wants to believe that the person he is now can make his own choices. Melina reminds him that memories do not necessarily define a person, especially when those memories have been manipulated. What matters is what Quaid chooses to do with the truth once he discovers it. This gives him the confidence to continue. Together, Quaid and Melina follow the clues toward the location of the mysterious alien technology. They know that Cohagen will do everything possible to stop them, but they also understand that reaching the hidden machine may be the only chance to change the situation on Mars. Feels strangely familiar. The situation becomes even more confusing when Quaid realizes that the people around him may have their own hidden motives. He has already learned that his former life was based on deception, so he cannot easily trust anyone. Still, Melina remains determined to help him discover the truth. She believes that the real Quaid is still somewhere inside the man standing beside her. Their escape becomes increasingly dangerous when Cohagen's forces attack them. Quaid fights back with the instincts of a highly trained operative, proving once again that his supposed construction worker identity cannot explain his abilities. He and Melina manage to survive, but they are forced deeper into the underground world of Mars. Eventually, they reach an area where members of the Resistance are hiding. Here, Quaid learns more about Kuato and the role he may have played in the struggle against Cohagen. Kuato is not simply a political leader, he represents the Resistance's hope for freedom. Cohagen's government has spent years spreading fear and controlling information so that ordinary citizens remain powerless. The Resistance believes that Kuato possesses knowledge capable of changing the future of Mars. Quaid begins to suspect that his old identity may have been connected directly to Kuato. If that is true, then the memories hidden inside his mind could contain information that Cohagen desperately wants. Quaid understands that finding Kuato may finally explain why his entire life was turned into a carefully constructed lie. At the same time, Cohagen realizes that his enemies are getting closer to the truth. He uses every resource available to locate Quaid and the Resistance. His soldiers capture people connected to the underground movement and force them to reveal information. Cohagen's greatest concern is not simply Quaid himself, but what Quaid might remember. If the Resistance discovers the truth about Kuato and the hidden plans beneath Mars, Cohagen's control could collapse. Quaid and Melina eventually reach a secret location where the resistance is protecting their mysterious leader. Quaid is shocked by what he sees because Quato is not what he expected. The truth about Quato is connected to the strange biological condition of the resistance leader, making the entire situation even more mysterious. Quaid realizes that he has been searching for answers that are far more complicated than a simple secret identity. The people around him have been protecting Quato because his survival represents the possibility of freedom for Mars. Quaid's forgotten past may be one of the keys to protecting that possibility. The Resistance then explains that Quaid's memories were deliberately altered because he had been working against Cohagen before his identity was changed. His mission had placed him close to important information, but his enemies discovered what he was doing. Instead of killing him immediately, they turned him into someone else and sent him away from Mars. The plan was to make him forget everything and live a completely ordinary life on Earth, but the memories could never be completely destroyed. They remained buried inside his mind, appearing through dreams and instincts. Raquel accidentally brought those memories back to the surface. Quaid finally understands why his dreams always showed Mars and the mysterious woman beside him. His mind had been trying to reconnect with the life that had been taken away from him. He also understands why Cohagen reacted so aggressively once he learned that Quaid had recovered his memories. The truth could expose the government's secrets and give the resistance the opportunity it needs to challenge Cohagen's rule. Remain in the same area for long. Cohagen has surveillance everywhere, and the resistance has suffered a major setback. Quaid begins thinking about the information Quato gave him and tries to understand how his old identity fits into the mystery. He knows that somewhere beneath Mars is a machine capable of transforming the planet, but he does not know exactly where it is located. The clues hidden inside his memories may be the only way to find it. Meanwhile, Cohagen begins using the media to manipulate the population and make Quaid appear to be a dangerous terrorist. The government claims that Quaid is responsible for violence and chaos across the colony. This makes it harder for him to move freely because ordinary people are afraid of him. Quaid realizes that Cohagen is trying to control not only the military but also the public's perception of the resistance. If everyone believes Quaid is a criminal, nobody will question the government's actions. Melina reminds him that the truth is more important than what Cohagen tells the population. Together, they continue searching for the hidden entrance to the alien facility. Their investigation leads them through some of the most dangerous parts of the Martian colony. They encounter workers, smugglers, and people who live outside the official system. Quaid starts noticing that many ordinary citizens secretly support the resistance because they are tired of living under Cohagen's control. The colony is divided between those who benefit from the government and those who suffer because of it. The oxygen supply remains the most powerful weapon because without it the population cannot survive. Quaid begins to understand that the alien reactor is not simply a piece of technology, it represents independence for an entire planet. If the atmosphere can be restored, Cohagen loses the power to decide who gets to breathe. This makes the reactor the most important target in the conflict. Quaid also realizes that the government has probably known about the technology for a long time. Instead of using it to help everyone, Cohagen has kept it hidden because the existing system gives him control. The resistance has been fighting for years because they believe Mars should belong to its people rather than one powerful ruler. As Quaid and Melina move closer to the facility, Cohagen's forces begin tracking them again. They are forced into another dangerous escape, and Quaid relies on the instincts that continue returning to him. Every fight makes him more comfortable with the abilities he once considered impossible for a construction worker. He no longer doubts that his past involved serious combat and covert missions, yet there is still an emotional conflict inside him. Part of Quaid still remembers his life with Lori and wonders whether any part of that relationship was genuine. Melina tells him that he cannot allow false memories to control his choices. What matters is what he does now. Quaid finally accepts that he may never recover every detail of his past, but he can still decide what kind of person he wants to become. Instead of focusing only on who he used to be, he begins thinking about the people who need his help. If activating the reactor can free millions of people from Cohagen's control, then he is willing to risk his life to make it happen. The search eventually leads Quaid and Melina toward the entrance of the ancient alien facility. They discover evidence showing that the technology beneath Mars is far older and more powerful than they imagined. The machinery has remained hidden for generations, waiting for someone to activate it. Quaid begins to understand that his previous mission may have been designed to uncover this location. His memory loss prevented him from remembering the final details, but the clues are slowly returning. At the same time, Cohagen receives information about their location and sends his strongest forces to stop them. Quaid and Melina realize they have very little time. If Cohagen reaches the facility first, he could destroy the reactor or use it to maintain his control. The two move forward despite the danger, knowing that there may be no second opportunity. Quaid's journey has taken him from an ordinary life on Earth to the center of a political revolution on Mars. What started as a strange desire to visit Mars has now become a fight that could determine the future of the entire planet. As the battle continues, Quaid begins to understand the importance of the reactor. The machine is not simply a weapon or a power source. It appears to be capable of creating an entirely new atmosphere for Mars. If activated correctly, it could release enormous amounts of oxygen and make the planet suitable for human life without requiring Cohagen's controlled oxygen systems. This discovery explains why the Resistance has fought for so long. Their goal is not simply to remove Cohagen from power. They want to give the people of Mars the ability to live freely. Cohagen tries to convince Quaid that activating the machine will cause a catastrophe. He claims that nobody knows exactly what the ancient technology will do and that turning it on could destroy the colony. Quaid understands that Cohagen is using fear to stop him, but he also knows that there is genuine danger involved. The reactor is extremely powerful and nobody can guarantee what will happen once it starts. Despite the risk, Quaid believes that allowing Cohagen to remain in control is even more dangerous for the people of Mars. Cohagen's soldiers continue attacking, forcing Quaid and Melina to separate while they search for a way to activate the machine. Quaid discovers that the facility contains systems that respond to his actions, suggesting that his previous identity may have known how to operate them. He remembers fragments of information from his earlier life and begins connecting those memories to the technology. The strange visions that once confused him now make more sense. His mind had been trying to recover information that was deliberately erased. He realizes that his journey to Mars was never an accident. His old mission had brought him close to the alien technology, and the people who controlled his identity had tried to make sure he would never remember it. Raquel had accidentally broken the barrier surrounding those memories. Quaid now understands that the entire chain of events began because he wanted to experience an artificial trip to Mars. What he thought was a fantasy vacation became the key to recovering his real past. But there is no time to think about the irony. Cohaagen is getting closer, and the reactor must be activated before the soldiers can destroy it. Meanwhile, Melina fights to survive while trying to keep the Resistance's hopes alive. She knows that Quaid is the only person who can reach the reactor in time. Cohaagen's forces begin damaging parts of the facility, hoping to make the ancient machine unusable. The destruction creates instability throughout the underground complex, making the situation even more dangerous. Quaid pushes forward despite the collapsing structures and constant attacks. He no longer sees himself as a helpless man trying to understand his own memories. He has accepted that he was once deeply involved in the struggle against Cohaagen, and he is now choosing to continue that fight. Melina reminds him that millions of people are depending on them. Quaid reaches the central control area and begins working with the ancient system. The technology starts responding, but the process is unstable. Alarms and mechanical movements indicate that something enormous is beginning to happen beneath the surface. Cohaagen realizes what Quaid is doing and becomes desperate to stop him. He knows that once the reactor is activated, his greatest advantage could disappear forever. The confrontation between Quaid and Cohaagen becomes personal as they finally face each other. Cohaagen tries to manipulate Quaid by reminding him of the life he once had on Earth. He suggests that Quaid could still return to his old identity and forget everything that happened on Mars. For a moment, the offer represents the possibility of escaping the chaos, but Quaid now understands that his old life was built on lies. He cannot return to a false identity simply because it feels comfortable. He chooses to trust what he has discovered and continue fighting for the people of Mars. Cohaagen attacks, and Quaid is forced into another brutal struggle. The battle takes them dangerously close to the reactor's machinery. Melina tries to help Quaid while the facility begins reacting to the activation process. The ancient technology becomes increasingly unstable and the entire area seems ready to collapse. Quaid realizes that he may not survive, but he refuses to stop. The only way to defeat Cohaagen's system is to remove the power that allows him to control the colony. At the crucial moment, Quaid manages to activate the reactor. The ancient machine suddenly comes alive, sending enormous amounts of energy through the underground facility. A powerful transformation begins beneath the surface of Mars. The system starts releasing gases into the atmosphere, creating breathable air where none existed before. Cohaagen's control over oxygen is immediately threatened because the people of Mars will no longer depend completely on his artificial supply. The entire colony begins experiencing the effects of the atmospheric change. Quaid and Melina struggle to survive as the facility shakes around them. Cohaagen attempts to escape, but the power of the reactor makes the situation impossible to control. The battle that began with Quaid questioning his own identity has now reached its final stage. The technology hidden beneath Mars has finally been activated, and the future of the planet is changing. Quaid looks toward the transformed sky and realizes that the strange dreams that started everything were leading him toward this moment. The truth about his past has been uncovered. Cohaagen's greatest weapon is disappearing, and Mars is finally beginning to breathe freely after the ancient reactor is activated, the entire underground facility begins shaking violently as an enormous amount of energy moves through the system. Quaid and Melina struggle to stay alive while the machinery around them starts breaking apart. The transformation of Mars has begun, and the consequences are happening much faster than anyone expected. The alien technology starts releasing gases into the atmosphere, gradually creating breathable air for the people living on the planet. For the first time, Quaid realizes that the impossible dream of changing Mars is actually becoming reality, but there is still one final danger. Cohagen refuses to accept defeat and continues trying to stop the process. He knows that once the atmosphere becomes breathable, his control over the colony will be destroyed. The oxygen supply was the foundation of his power, and the reactor is taking that power away. Quaid understands that Cohagen will continue fighting until the very end, so he prepares for one last confrontation. Melina remains beside him as they attempt to escape the collapsing facility and survive the massive changes happening around them. Cohagen tries to reach the controls and reverse what Quaid has done, but the reactor is already operating at full power. The ancient system is too powerful for him to control. Quaid and Melina move through the facility, while explosions and structural failures occur around them. The danger is no longer only coming from Cohagen's soldiers. The entire environment has become unstable. Quaid manages to fight through the remaining guards using the combat instincts that have become natural to him. He is no longer confused about whether he can survive. His memories have returned enough for him to understand his abilities, but he also realizes that his identity is more than the memories that were implanted or erased. The person he has become through his journey is making his own choices. Melina encourages him to keep moving because they need to reach the surface before the facility collapses completely. Above them, the people of Mars begin witnessing a remarkable transformation. The sky changes as gases spread through the atmosphere, and the possibility of breathing naturally becomes real for the first time in the colony's history. At the same time, Cohagen's remaining forces attempt to regain control of the situation. The government is collapsing because its greatest weapon is disappearing. Without complete control of the oxygen supply, Cohagen can no longer threaten the population in the same way. The resistance members begin realizing that they have finally achieved what they have been fighting for. People who were once afraid to challenge the authorities begin coming out into the open. The political structure that kept Mars under control starts falling apart. Quaid and Melina make their way toward the surface, but they still have to deal with Cohagen himself. Cohagen refuses to surrender and tries to convince Quaid that everything he has done was necessary to protect Mars. He claims that without his control, the colony will descend into chaos. Quaid rejects this argument because he has seen how ordinary people suffered under Cohagen's rule. The government used the lack of oxygen to maintain fear, and Cohagen's concern for order was really a desire to preserve his own power. Quaid realizes that freedom always carries risks, but the people of Mars deserve the chance to control their own future. The final confrontation between Quaid and Cohagen becomes a battle between two completely different visions for Mars. Cohagen wants to maintain a system where a small group controls the planet's most important resource. Quaid believes that the people should be free from that control. Their fight takes place in a dangerous environment where the changing atmosphere and unstable machinery make every movement risky. Quaid refuses to let Cohagen escape after everything he has done. Cohagen continues attacking with desperation, knowing that his power is disappearing. Quaid fights back with all the strength and determination he has developed throughout the story. Melina helps him when she can, but eventually Quaid is forced to confront Cohagen directly. The fight pushes both men toward the edge of the facility. The reactor continues operating behind them, and the transformation of Mars becomes more visible with every passing moment. Quaid realizes that he has reached the end of his journey. He began the story wanting to understand a dream, and now he is fighting to protect an entire planet. As the battle reaches its climax, Cohagen is finally defeated. His attempt to stop the transformation fails, and the power he once controlled is lost. The Resistance succeeds in breaking the system that kept Mars under his authority. Quaid survives the confrontation, although the events have completely changed him. He is no longer the confused construction worker who simply wanted an exciting artificial vacation. He has discovered that his memories were manipulated, that his past was connected to the Resistance, and that his choices can affect the lives of millions. Melina remains with him, and the two finally have a moment to look at what has happened. The atmosphere of Mars is changing, and the people of the colony are beginning to experience a future that was once considered impossible. Quaid looks toward the transformed planet and recognizes that his dreams were connected to something real. The mysterious images that once frightened him have finally led him to the truth. Yet even after everything he has discovered, one question remains in his mind: how much of what happened was truly real, and how much could still be part of the artificial experience created by recall? As the people of Mars begin realizing that they no longer need to depend on Cohagen's oxygen system, the atmosphere of the colony changes politically as well as physically. The fear that once controlled ordinary citizens begins disappearing. Workers who had been forced to obey the authorities now have the opportunity to challenge the system. The Resistance members understand that Cohagen's defeat is only the beginning of rebuilding Mars. Years of conflict have damaged the colony, and many people have suffered because of the government's policies. Quaid and Melina move through the changing environment while observing the reactions of the people around them. Some are celebrating, while others are still uncertain about what the future will bring. Quaid realizes that freedom does not instantly solve every problem. The people of Mars now have to create a new society without the constant threat of losing their oxygen supply. But for the first time, they can make those decisions themselves. Quaid feels a strange sense of satisfaction because the dream that once seemed impossible has become real. He came to Mars searching for the truth about himself, but his journey has also helped create a future for millions of other people. Despite the apparent victory, Quaid cannot completely stop thinking about recall. The company was where everything began, and the strange events there continue to raise questions. He remembers lying inside the memory machine and hearing the technicians become alarmed. He remembers the warnings and the sudden interruption, but he cannot determine whether the events afterward were completely real. The possibility that the entire adventure could be an artificial memory remains in the background. The movie intentionally makes it difficult to separate reality from fantasy. Quaid's memories were already unreliable before he entered Raquel, and the technology is powerful enough to create experiences that feel genuine. Melina seems completely real to him, but even that certainty can be questioned. Quaid wonders whether his entire journey to Mars, his relationship with Melina, his battle against Cohagen, and the transformation of the planet could have been part of the fantasy he originally requested. However, the evidence he encountered along the way was so detailed and consistent that he finds it difficult to dismiss everything as an illusion. Quaid also thinks about Laurie and the life he once believed was real. His memories of their marriage are still present, even though he now knows that the relationship was connected to the deception surrounding his identity. He remembers the ordinary moments they shared, the conversations, and the home they lived in together. Those memories may have been artificial, but they still influenced him emotionally. Quaid realizes that memory is not always the same thing as truth. A person can remember something perfectly and still be remembering a lie. This idea becomes one of the most important lessons of his journey. He has spent the entire story trying to discover which version of himself is real, but eventually he begins to understand that identity is shaped by choices as much as memories. The man who fought for Mars is the person he chooses to be now, regardless of what happened before. Melina accepts him without demanding that he completely recover every detail of his past. Their relationship is based on what they have experienced together rather than on memories someone else created for them. Meanwhile, the people of Mars begin exploring the possibilities created by the new atmosphere. The ancient technology has changed the planet in a way that could affect future generations. Places that were once deadly may eventually become accessible, and the colony may no longer need to depend on the same artificial systems that kept people alive before. The Resistance sees this as the beginning of a new era. Quaid's actions have become part of the story of Mars. Although he does not appear interested in becoming a hero or political leader, he simply wanted answers and ended up helping change an entire world. Melina remains close to him as they watch the new atmosphere spread across the planet. Their journey has brought them through betrayal, violence, uncertainty, and danger, but they have survived. Quaid now has the opportunity to live without constantly running from assassins or governments. For the first time, he can think about his future instead of trying to escape his past. Still, the final uncertainty about reality remains impossible to ignore. Quaid remembers the warning from the recall employee that if the memory became too intense, he might have difficulty distinguishing fantasy from reality. Everything that followed could therefore be interpreted in two different ways. One possibility is that Quaid truly uncovered his forgotten identity, traveled to Mars, defeated Cohagen, and activated the alien reactor. The other possibility is that Rekal created an extraordinarily detailed fantasy based on Quaid's desires. The strange timing, the secret agent scenario, the beautiful woman from his dreams, and the final transformation of Mars all seem almost too perfect. Yet Quaid has no way to prove which interpretation is correct. The story ends by leaving the audience with the same uncertainty that has followed Quaid from the beginning. He looks at Melina and the transformed world, seemingly satisfied with what he has achieved. Whether it is a real victory or an artificial memory, the experience has given him something he wanted from the beginning, a life that feels meaningful. And as the story moves toward its final moments, the question of reality remains one of the greatest mysteries surrounding Quaid's journey. The situation on Mars changes completely after the reactor begins transforming the atmosphere. Quaid and Melina watch as the deadly environment slowly becomes capable of supporting human life. The people who once depended on Cohagen's controlled oxygen supply now have the possibility of breathing freely. For the resistance, this is more than a victory in battle. It means the foundation of Cohagen's power has been destroyed. Quaid has played a central role in making this possible, but he is still struggling with everything that has happened to him. His memories have been manipulated so many times that he cannot be completely certain which parts of his life are real. He remembers being Douglas Quaid, a construction worker with a wife on Earth, but he has also discovered another identity connected to Mars and the Resistance. The two versions of his life continue to exist inside his mind. Melina helps him focus on the present, reminding him that regardless of what memories were implanted or removed, his actions during the crisis were his own choices. As the people of Mars begin realizing that they no longer need to depend on Cohagen's oxygen system, the atmosphere of the colony changes politically as well as physically. The fear that once controlled ordinary citizens begins disappearing. Workers who had been forced to obey the authorities now have the opportunity to challenge the system. The resistance members understand that Cohagen's defeat is only the beginning of rebuilding Mars. Years of conflict have damaged the colony, and many people have suffered because of the government's policies. Quaid and Melina move through the changing environment while observing the reactions of the people around them. Some are celebrating, while others are still uncertain about what the future will bring. Quaid realizes that freedom does not instantly solve every problem. The people of Mars now have to create a new society without the constant threat of losing their oxygen supply. But for the first time they can make those decisions themselves. Quaid feels a strange sense of satisfaction because the dream that once seemed impossible has become real. He came to Mars searching for the truth about himself, but his journey has also helped create a future for millions of other people. Despite the apparent victory, Quaid cannot completely stop thinking about Rekal. The company was where everything began, and the strange events there continued to raise questions. He remembers lying inside the memory machine and hearing the technicians become alarmed. He remembers the warnings and the sudden interruption, but he cannot determine whether the events afterward were completely real. The possibility that the entire adventure could be an artificial memory remains in the background. The movie intentionally makes it difficult to separate reality from fantasy. Quaid's memories were already unreliable before he entered Rekal, and the technology is powerful enough to create experiences that feel genuine. Melina seems completely real to him, but even that certainty can be questioned. Quaid wonders whether his entire journey to Mars, his relationship with Melina, his battle against Cohagen, and the transformation of the planet could have been part of the fantasy he originally requested. However, the evidence he encountered along the way was so detailed and consistent that he finds it difficult to dismiss everything as an illusion. Quaid also thinks about Laurie and the life he once believed was real. His memories of their marriage are still present, even though he now knows that the relationship was connected to the deception surrounding his identity. He remembers the ordinary moments they shared, the conversations, and the home they lived in together. Those memories may have been artificial, but they still influenced him emotionally. Quaid realizes that memory is not always the same thing as truth. A person can remember something perfectly and still be remembering a lie. This idea becomes one of the most important lessons of his journey. He has spent the entire story trying to discover which version of himself is real, but eventually he begins to understand that identity is shaped by choices as much as memories. The man who fought for Mars is the person he chooses to be now, regardless of what happened before. Melina accepts him without demanding that he completely recover every detail of his past. Their relationship is based on what they have experienced together rather than on memories someone else created for them. Meanwhile, the people of Mars begin exploring the possibilities created by the new atmosphere. The ancient technology has changed the planet in a way that could affect future generations. Places that were once deadly may eventually become accessible, and the colony may no longer need to depend on the same artificial systems that kept people alive before. The Resistance sees this as the beginning of a new era. Quaid's actions have become part of the story of Mars, although he does not appear interested in becoming a hero or political leader. He simply wanted answers and ended up helping change an entire world. Melina remains close to him as they watch the new atmosphere spread across the planet. Their journey has brought them through betrayal, violence, uncertainty, and danger, but they have survived. Quaid now has the opportunity to live without constantly running from assassins or governments. For the first time, he can think about his future instead of something inside him told him that he was meant for something more. His repeated dreams about Mars were the first signs that his mind was hiding information from him. When he visited Rekal, he believed he was purchasing an artificial adventure, but the procedure instead unlocked memories that appeared to belong to another life. Suddenly, the ordinary identity of Douglas Quaid began falling apart. He discovered that his combat skills were not those of a construction worker and that people were willing to kill him because of what he knew. His relationship with Lori was revealed to be part of the deception surrounding his identity, while Melina became connected to the mysterious memories he had been experiencing. Every discovery pushed him closer to Mars, and further away from the life he once considered real. By the time he reached the planet, he was no longer simply searching for entertainment. He was searching for the truth about himself. The political struggle on Mars eventually became the center of Quaid's mission. Cohagen had maintained his power by controlling the oxygen supply and using fear to keep the population under his authority. The Resistance fought against this system because they believed the people of Mars deserved freedom. Quaid's forgotten identity was connected to that struggle, and his knowledge became essential to discovering the hidden alien technology beneath the planet. The reactor represented the possibility of independence because it could create a breathable atmosphere and remove Cohagen's control over oxygen. When Quaid activated the system, he did more than defeat one powerful enemy. He changed the conditions that allowed the entire oppressive system to exist. The people of Mars could finally imagine a future where their survival was not controlled by a single government. Quaid never planned to become a hero, but his search for his own identity eventually turned into a battle that affected millions of lives. His greatest achievement was helping create the possibility of freedom for people he had never even met. The relationship between Quaid and Melina also becomes an important part of the ending. Before he discovered his hidden identity, Quaid's dreams showed him a mysterious woman on Mars. Later, he met Melina and realized that she was the same woman from those dreams. This creates another major question about the nature of his memories. If his dreams were simply fantasies, how could they have predicted a person he eventually met? Perhaps his subconscious mind was remembering his real past before his conscious memory returned. Maybe his connection with Melina existed long before he became Douglas Quaid. But there is another possibility. Rekal may have created Melina as part of the adventure he requested. Quaid wanted an exciting secret agent story, and the woman he imagined could have been incorporated into the artificial experience. The movie never confirms which explanation is correct. Instead, Melina represents the emotional side of Quaid's journey. She is the person who accepts him despite his uncertain identity, and their relationship gives him a sense of belonging after everything he has lost. The mystery becomes even stronger when Quaid considers the warnings given to him at recall. The technicians knew that something unusual was happening inside his mind, and the procedure was stopped because his brain appeared to contain memories that conflicted with the artificial scenario. This could mean that Quaid's mind was recovering real memories that someone had previously hidden. If so, his journey to Mars was genuine, and the final transformation of the planet really happened. But the alternative interpretation is equally fascinating. Perhaps the entire adventure occurred inside the recall experience, created from Quaid's deepest desires and fears. He wanted to be a secret agent, wanted to visit Mars, wanted an exciting romance, and wanted to experience danger. The story gave him all of these things in one extraordinary adventure. Even the final victory could have been designed to give him the perfect ending. This uncertainty is one of the greatest strengths of the story because there is no definitive answer. The audience must decide what they believe happened, just as Quaid must decide what he believes. In the end, Quaid chooses to accept the moment rather than continue questioning every detail. He stands beside Melina and looks at Mars as the atmosphere continues changing. The planet has become a symbol of his own transformation. At the beginning, Quaid was trapped inside a life that felt ordinary and incomplete. He believed his memories were reliable and his identity was certain. By the end, he understands that memories can be manipulated and that identity can be hidden, but choices still matter. He chose to fight instead of surrender, trusted Melina when others betrayed him, and activated the technology even though the consequences were uncertain. Whether those events happened in reality or inside a recall fantasy, they changed the way he understood himself. The final moments deliberately leave the audience questioning everything. Quaid may truly have saved Mars, or he may still be inside the memory machine experiencing the ultimate adventure. But perhaps the answer is less important than the transformation itself. He wanted to escape his ordinary life and discover something extraordinary, and he found exactly that. The story closes with Quaid and Melina together beneath the new Martian sky, leaving us with one unforgettable question. Is this reality, or is it the perfect memory Quaid always wanted?